Hash all 7 main Star Trek captains, ranked worst to best. The heart of Star Trek has always been its captains, the commanding officers who lead with courage, compassion, and sometimes controversy. Across nearly 6 decades of television and film, Star Trek has introduced us to a range of Starfleet leaders, each defined by unique command styles, philosophies, and moral dilemmas. While all have earned their place in the Federation's legacy, some captains shine brighter than others. Here's a bold ranking of the 7 main Star Trek captains, from the weakest to the most iconic. 7. Captain Jonathan Archer, Star Trek Enterprise, portrayed by Scott Bakula. Ship NX-01 Enterprise. Years active 2001 to 2005. Star Trek Enterprise. Captain Archer had perhaps the toughest job of them all. He had to set the tone for what Starfleet would become. As the first human to lead an interstellar mission aboard a Warp 5 ship, Archer faced unprecedented situations with little to no guidance. Unfortunately, this inexperience often translated into erratic decision-making, cultural insensitivity, and a lack of the gravitas fans had come to expect from Star Trek captains. While Enterprise deserves credit for exploring the rough early days of exploration, Archer's inconsistent moral compass and sometimes reactionary tactics kept him from becoming the inspirational figure that later captains would embody. He grew into the role, particularly in the Xindi arc, but never quite achieved the level of iconic leadership seen elsewhere in the franchise. 6. Captain Christopher Pike, Star Trek Discovery and Strange New Worlds, portrayed by Anson Mount. Modern era Jeffrey Hunter. Original pilot. Ship USS Enterprise, NCC 1701. Years active 2019. Present. Discovery, Strange New Worlds. Captain Pike has had a resurgence in recent years, evolving from a mostly forgotten footnote in the original Star Trek pilot to one of the franchise's most beloved modern captains. Anson Mount's portrayal infuses Pike with charisma, empathy, and a strong moral core. He balances optimism with the weight of knowing his tragic future, a fate glimpsed in Discovery that makes his bravery all the more compelling. However, Pike is still a relatively new captain in terms of screen time. While his trajectory is promising and his leadership style a welcome return to classic Trek values, he hasn't yet been tested by the same decades-long ethical and narrative gauntlets his peers have faced. If Strange New Worlds continues its upward trajectory, Pike may rise in the ranks, but for now, his story is still being written. 5. Captain Katherine Janeway, Star Trek Voyager, portrayed by Kate Mulgrew. Ship USS Voyager, NCC 74656. Years active 1995 to 2001. Star Trek Voyager. Captain Janeway had one of the most challenging commands in Star Trek history, stranded in the Delta Quadrant, 70,000 light-years from Earth, with a crew split between Starfleet officers and former Maquis rebels. Her job wasn't just to command, it was to unite, inspire, and lead her crew home against insurmountable odds. Janeway was a fierce and determined leader, a scientist at heart who valued principles and compassion. However, she could also be ruthless when necessary, making morally questionable decisions in episodes like Tuvix and Equinox. Her unwavering command style sometimes bordered on authoritarian, drawing criticism even from her crew. Despite these contradictions, Janeway was a trailblazer, the first female captain to lead a Star Trek series, and a role model for many. Her legacy continues with her reappearance in Star Trek Prodigy, proving she still has more stories to tell. 4. Captain Michael Burnham, Star Trek Discovery, portrayed by Sonequa Martin Green. Ship USS Discovery, NCC 1031, then NCC 1031A. Years active 2017 to 2024. Star Trek Discovery. Michael Burnham had perhaps the most unconventional path to the captain's chair in Star Trek history. Starting as a mutineer in the series pilot, her journey toward redemption was filled with trauma, time travel, and universal calamities. By the time she officially took command of Discovery, Burnham had earned it 100 times over. Her emotional intelligence, deep empathy, and fierce loyalty define her leadership. She often leads from the heart, which can both elevate her and make her vulnerable. Burnham's tenure saw the Federation through its greatest crises, from the Klingon War to the Burn and beyond the known galaxy in the 32nd century. While some fans have criticized Discovery's focus on Burnham at the expense of ensemble storytelling, there's no denying her place in the pantheon of great captains. She represents the evolution of Starfleet values in a changing galaxy, bold, inclusive, and unflinchingly human. 3. Captain Benjamin Sisko, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. Portrayed by Avery Brooks. Station/ship, Deep Space Nine, USS Defiant. Years active, 1993 to 1999. Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. Captain Sisko was unlike any Star Trek captain before him. He wasn't an explorer in the traditional sense. He was a diplomat, a warrior, a father, and a religious icon all rolled into one. Deep Space Nine's unique setting allowed Sisko to evolve more dramatically than any other captain, from a grieving widower to the emissary of the prophets. Sisko made the hard choices others might shy away from. He lied, manipulated, and sometimes sacrificed his ideals for the greater good, most memorably in the episode In the Pale Moonlight. Yet, these decisions never felt careless. They reflected the messy, morally complex world he inhabited, particularly during the Dominion War. What elevates Sisko even more is his personal story, his deep love for his son Jake, his passion for history and culture, and his status as the first black captain to lead a Star Trek series. Sisko brought gravity, nuance, and fire to the role, and DS9 was all the better for it. 2. Captain James T. Kirk, Star Trek, the original series and films. Portrayed by William Shatner. Ship, USS Enterprise, NCC 1701, NCC 1701A. Years active, 1966 to 1969. TOS, 1979 to 1994. Films. The original. The legend. The man who boldly went where no one had gone before. Captain James Tiberius Kirk set the template for all who followed. With charm, wit, confidence, and a dash of swagger, Kirk was the quintessential Starfleet captain, brave to a fault, loyal to his crew, and never afraid to punch a god in the face. Kirk wasn't without flaws. His womanizing, brashness, and tendency to throw caution to the wind sometimes landed him and the Federation in trouble. Yet, these imperfections made him all the more human. He relied on his crew, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, like family, and he was willing to sacrifice himself without hesitation when duty called, as seen in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Kirk's influence is immeasurable. Every captain that followed owes something to him. He made Star Trek iconic, not just a sci-fi show, but a mythology. 1. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Star Trek, The Next Generation and Films. Portrayed by Patrick Stewart. Ship, USS Enterprise, NCC 1701D, NCC 1701E. Years active, 1987 to 2002. TNG. Films, 2020 to 2023. Star Trek, Picard. Captain Jean-Luc Picard is the gold standard for Starfleet command. Diplomatic, philosophical, compassionate, and unshakably principled, Picard represents the very best of the Federation's ideals. He is a scholar and a soldier, an explorer and a protector, a man who thinks before he acts, but acts decisively when needed. Picard guided his crew through first contact with the Borg, internal coups within Starfleet, and the moral intricacies of dozens of alien cultures. His speeches, from The Measure of a Man to The Drumhead, remain some of the most powerful moments in television history. His calm authority and belief in the power of reason and ethics made him not just a